This is Gus Summers, and you're watching In Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. This week, we have another of Hollywood's living legends. This wonderful actor is so iconic that just the mere mention of his name conjures up images of great films, great acting, great directing, and all sorts of awards. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Robert Redford. This great actor was born right here in Southern California, grew up just outside of Los Angeles, and what he truly loved was sports and painting. And that's basically what he pursued. He went off to college, and after leaving college, he went on to Europe, traveled around through Spain, France, Portugal, and when he came back to the States, he decided to pursue not only painting, but also acting. And that was what became his passion. He made his way to New York, where back in the 50s, that's where everyone went, because that was the hubbub of not only Broadway, but television and feature films. He right away started getting parts in Broadway shows. He made himself a name very quickly as a Broadway actor, which opened the doors to television and feature films. He starred in some of the most iconic television series there were. He starred in Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Route 66, The Twilight Zone, all these great TV shows. Then, of course, he got himself feature film roles, and he worked with up-and-coming actors such as Christopher Plummer, Jane Fonda, and then well-established actors such as Alec Guinness, and of course, Marlon Brando. And he also earned himself Emmy nominations. He won a Golden Globe, and of course, as we know later on, he even earned himself an Oscar. Well, and that was just the beginning of the 60s. And we're not even counting the 70s and the 80s and so forth. And he still continues to do fantastic films and does so much outside of the film industry as well. Well, first up is a movie that when you watch it, it speaks volumes of who Robert Redford is. Because not only do we know him as a great actor and director, but we also know him as a philanthropist and an activist. This film really spotlights mistreatment of prisoners in our penal system. The film, Brubaker. He stars as Henry Brubaker, the warden of a notorious prison known for its mistreatment of its prisoners. He was selected to be a reform warden, but instead of going in there and taking over from the top, he decides to go in as a prisoner to see the abuse firsthand. So he goes in, he's brought in with other prisoners, and right away he begins to see how this particular system of this prison works. Like, for instance, he was going to sit, they were starting to shave people's heads who, the first prisoners coming in, and he noticed that some of the prisoners were getting short haircuts, flat tops and shaving their heads, and others were getting just little trims. And he realized that those who had some cash and paid for just a small trim so that their heads wouldn't be shaved, they gave the barber a few bucks and they just got a small trim and got to keep their hair. So he paid, he had a few dollars on him, paid, and got to keep his hair, where other prisoners lost his hair. So right away he started to notice that it was a pay for play. And he, as he got his clothes, as he went on to get his bedding and such, he was in this barracks, huge barracks, a party housed, in this particular one, 300 people. There were bunk beds, and the beds were horrible. For him to be able to lay down and go to sleep, he had to use material to tie the bed together so he can actually have a place to sleep. And just being there right away, he already saw mistreatment of other prisoners. And, it is prison and it is a prison life. And he got to see some of that from his perspective. And, right away he starts to see who's in charge. He got to know the people, the other prisoners who are in charge of the rest of the body, the foremans, the trustees. There was a few trustees that he got to know really well. One is, of course, a little more sympathetic than others, but another great actor. He plays Combs, a trustee who, they said he knows, what's going on there. Great actor, Yaphet Kotto. He's the one who eventually Brubaker trusts in telling him who he is. And then, of course, we always have our notorious trustees. And this particular trustee, you know him from many films. Great character actor. He plays Caldwell. He's always been this fit, slender, stone-faced character who always abides by the law. Any film you see him in, you always see him as this type of stern character. Great character actor. Everett McGill. So he is basically like a lead trustee who dishes out all the punishment. There's this big long leather strap with a handle. It must be like 4 feet long and about 8 inches thick, and they beat the prisoners with it when they disappear orders or whatever. When they causing trouble, they beat them across the buttocks, and of course. Robert Redford sees this, and sometimes it's just to show who's in command that they beat a prisoner. And again, Robert Redford has seen this. Yeah, along with Yaphet Kotto and Everett McGill, he starts to meet some of the other prisoners, and one who he begins to see is he's the tough guy. He is the one that a lot of people are afraid of, but he knows he has like a heart of gold or something like that, if you want to say it. Another fantastic actor, great actor. You've seen him in all sorts of stuff. He plays a Larry Lee, the great David Keith. I love him in this role because he's like I said, he's the one that'll stand up for you, but at the same time will take care of business if he needs to, if you cross him. So he's somebody that Robert Redford eventually learns to trust. And name another fine actress. She plays Lillian Gray. She's the one who appointed Robert Redford to be warden. The wonderful Jane Alexander. She knew what he was going to do. No one else knew, and so she was there ready to help him get out in case in case there's any trouble. Well, like I said, right away he starts seeing the horrible mistreatment. There is physical and sexual abuse of the prisoners. There's a scene where, as punishment, they have some of the prisoners standing on like a dozen soda bottles. In case they fall, they just shatter and break their feet. One night, David Keith there was some trouble, so he was mischievous and let these logs fall. And what ended up happening was that they come in and tell him, hey, you got a phone call. And they take him, and he goes, I don't want any phone call. I didn't do anything. And you realize when they drag her off prisoners that these little sayings are codes. And apparently what you find out is that he was basically electric shock. He was electrocuted, into submission. The following day, he's just like dead on his feet. He's just kind of just sitting there like that. Just kind of trying to recoup. Let me go from there because it leads to another great actor. Robert Redford gets basically a latrine duty. He has to clean out the dirty cells, so him and David Keith go off and they're cleaning the cells where they have the real bad prisoners. It's the hold. So one of the prisoners breaks out and is grabbing David Keith And he's saying, I want to see the warden. So I'm going to break his neck. I'm going to break his neck. And Robert Redford says, hey, I'm the new warden. Tell me what you want. And he goes, yeah, you're a prisoner. He goes, no, I'm the new warden. I'm tricking them. And he goes, you know what I want? I want some respect. That's what I want. I want respect. And he's all, sure, what else do you want? He goes, I want this place painted. And he goes, whatever you want. And so he goes, just let him go. So he lets Keith David go. Robert Redford tricks him, is able to get him back into the cell. And he's pounding, let me out, let me out. That actor, one of his first roles, Morgan Freeman. That's one of his first roles that he did. Again, great actor. Of course, you have so many different actors, but from that point forward, it's actually revealed that he is not a prisoner. He tells Yaphet Kotto, I am the new warden, take me to the office. And so then they go off into the office and tells the warden, you're out, I'm in. And then from there, the story begins as him as the new warden and how there are all the changes that were coming. Just one other thing. One of the things, what I liked about it is when he became warden, he was talking to everybody. He was saying, there's going to be changes now. This strap, no good. We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to, he was talking to a bullhorn to everybody. And he says, we're not going to use this anymore. Again, a great movie to really reflect on the interaction between man and man. Great film. I bring you forward to a film made around the same time. Of course, I think it's a movie so associated with him. You can't think of anyone else when you think of a baseball movie or this particular character. You can't even imagine it being remade with anyone else. It was just so well done. The film, The Natural. He plays Roy Hobbs. He plays in the beginning of the film, he's a young guy who, all his life ahead of him. He's a phenom pitcher, and he gets a chance to go out to the tryouts for the Cubs. So he's at home, and you see he has his young girlfriend. He says, I'm going to leave, but I'll come back for you. I'll send for you. Come with me. And wonderful actress. Of course, she's one of my favorites, Glenn Close. She plays Iris, his young teenage girlfriend. So you see them, say goodbye. He's on a train. He's on his way to his tryout. And on the train, you meet a couple of other great actors. Again, fantastic. The one thing I love about Robert Redford, he has so many great actors in his film. It's not just him. He surrounds himself with great talent. I love that. I love it. Just not one or two, but several. On the train, he meets a reporter who's with another baseball player who's like a Babe Ruth type. They call him the Whammer. He's a great, great actor, Joe Don Baker. And him and this news reporter who are friends, and they're traveling together. The reporter, again, another fantastic actor. He plays Max Mercy, the great Robert Duvall. So, they're on the train. Joe Don Baker, Robert Duvall are just talking baseball when they meet, Robert Redford and his agent. But the agent comes over just to say, hey, Whammer, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And they're chit-chatting, and then here comes Robert Redford. They're talking, hey, Robert Duvall and Joe Don Baker are pretty much, just condescending to them. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're a great pitcher. Right. So, he basically dismisses them, but there is this young lady that Joe Don Baker sees, another delightful actress, wonderful actress. She plays Harriet Bird, and she's only in the film the first little bit, played by Barbara Hershey. So she kind of connects with Joe Don Baker. They're kind of looking at each other, and then the train stops, and they get off at a carnival. They're taking time out. You see Joe Don Baker, impressing the people, impressing Barbara Hershey. He's hitting baseballs, boom, and he's hitting them really far, and he's hitting this banner, says home run. He keeps hitting them. And meanwhile, at the same time, you see Robert Redford pitching baseballs, hitting the cones and everything, boom, yeah, yeah. But here comes Joe Don Baker. Hey, don't mess up, and Robert Redford messes up. And Joe Don Baker is pretty condescending. So is Robert Duvall. And Robert Redford's agent says, "Hey, I bet he can strike you out with 3 strikes. 3 pitch ball, he'll strike you out." He's like, "No way, not a chance." He goes, "I got money." Everyone's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And Joe Don Baker says, "All right, let's see what he got. Come on." So they go out into a field. Robert Duvall counts the steps. He goes, "Okay, this is good. Now pitch." And so Robert Redford goes, gets ready. Joe Don Baker's, yeah, whatever. Throws the baseball. Boom. Flies right by him. And Joe Don Baker says, and Robert Duvall's like, "Strike one." He's like, what was that? Joe Don Baker says, "All right, come on. Switch again. Boom. Throws it right by him. He's a strike 2. Robert Duvall's like, "What's happening?" Joe Don Baker's like, "Come on." Takes off his jacket, gets the bat and points. Like, "I'm going to hit this one." And so, then what I like, again, anytime you emphasize a particular scene, that, they do slow motion. So Robert Redford, it slows down. Robert Redford winds up, pitches, and you see the ball, shoo, and Joe Don Baker, swing and miss. Big miss where he, even falls to the ground and everything. Strike 3. Robert Duvall's, "You're out." And they're like, "Yeah." And so at that point, Joe Don Baker's humiliated. Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford is like, "Yeah, on top of the world." He just struck out the leading hitter of the National League. And Robert Duvall ends up, getting a new story since he's a news reporter. But the main thing is that Barbara Hershey, who I'm not going to give away anything about her and her character, her fixation leaves, of course, Joe Don Baker, the Whammer, and now is on Roy Hobbs. And things happen there. And so, you got to watch the film so you know what happens. But at that point, the film changes. Now it's about 15 years later. And you see baseball game going on, practice and everything, and the team is called the Knights, and the manager, another great actor. I love when they get these great actors. The manager is Pop Fisher, and it's the delightful Wilford Brimley. I love Wilford Brimley. He always had that big mustache, and he's able to be always real grumpy. Yeah, so great casting as the manager, and then he has his assistant manager, another great character actor. He plays a Red Blow, but it's a Richard Farnsworth. Richard Farnsworth, you always saw in these westerns. Another guy who has big, looks like a cowboy, big mustache too, but his disposition is very nice and friendly. A great casting again. I think it was perfect against them too. So he comes in and says, I'm a new rookie. A middle-aged rookie? What are you talking about? I don't need a middle-aged rookie. And he goes, "Well, I signed the contract." And he said, whatever, fine. And never tends to play him. Well, you learn that it's a ploy. You find out that there's 2 owners. One is Pop Fisher, Wilford Brimley. Another one, he's called the Judge. Another great character actor, Robert Prosky, and he's called the Judge. And he's made a bet that Wilford Brimley has to win the pennant this year. If not, the team goes to him. So you find out that the Judge has someone on the take, and he's blowing the games purposely to have Pop Fisher lose. But then he introduces other characters. So you have the baseball player on the take. He's another great actor. He plays Bump Bailey, Michael Madsen. And then you have his girlfriend, who happens to be working for the Judge, and finesses Michael Madsen to lose games. Another wonderful actress. She plays Memo Paris. Kim Basinger. And then you have see again, another great character actor. He is like he's like a bookie. He handles everything for the judge, and manages everybody. His name is Gus. Gus Sands. It's the great Darren McGavin. So you have all these interplays. You have Pops and Red dealing with Roy Hobbs. Roy Hobbs is wanting to play. Pop's not wanting him to play. The judge is trying to manipulate Michael Madsen, which he's doing, and then that blows up, and then they turn their attention onto Roy Hobbs and try to get him manipulated. Pops and finally realizes that Roy Hobbs is really good, and so starts letting him play. The team starts turning around. They start winning games. And then to throw in the mix, when all this is happening to him, here comes Iris Glenn Close to throw something else in the mix. So the good part of Roy Hobbs starts to emerge. He's a good guy. The little corruption starts seeping in, so he has to deal with that. And I'm just talking about, that's probably not even half the movie yet. But of course, he goes on, and you have to. He goes on and to deal with all that in a particular way. So you got to watch the film. Again, great film. These are just a couple of movies that I love how he showcases all this other great talent that work together and produces something wonderful. Well, last movie, I liked it because I kind of wanted to bookend it because I was thinking about what I could do with Robert Redford. I could have done Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid, 3 Days of the Condor, All the President's Men. These are Out of Africa. Tons of stuff that he's started in himself. But I kind of looked at different films. I said, what, I like this last film, and it kind of bookends the first film. The first film, he's a warden, taking up a corrupt penal system. This last one, he is a prisoner, taking up the cause of the prisoners from within. The film, The Last Castle. He plays Lieutenant General Eugene Irwin. He gets sentenced to 10 years for disobeying orders and is sent to Leavenworth. He is a disgraced general who's nothing more than a number and a prisoner in Leavenworth. Well, the commander of the facility, another great actor, taken too soon. Colonel Winter, played by the great James Gandolfini. When they meet, James Gandolfini has great admiration for General Irwin, who he was, what he did, and has tons of respect for him. He himself has never saw battle, but because he came through the ranks, he learned about him through officer school and everything. So has great respect for him. So he brings in Robert Redford, wants to tell him the lay of the land, and Robert Redford had written probably several books, but there was a book he wanted Robert Redford to sign. But when he's in the office, he says a comment to one of the other staff members, which basically irks James Gandolfini, and he tells him, I can't find the book, why don't you go ahead and go to your cell. And he goes to the cell, and they have, everyone is, hey, General, what'd you do, boo, catcalling, all kinds of stuff to him. While they were betting that he would commit suicide in a short time. And people say, no, he won't. He goes, oh, yeah, I will. I'll give him 2 weeks. I'll give him 3 weeks. I'll give him this and that, this and that. And the actor who's taking down all the bets, his name is Yates. And again, another great actor. I'm talking about Mark Ruffalo. He plays Yates. He's the one that takes all the bets. He's the guy that gets stuff. He's the guy that takes all the action down. And so, he's there. He's just trying to do his time. He's seen how the prison works. Well, right away, some prisoners come to him and say, you know, they basically mistreat us. They abuse us. People have been killed under his command, under James Gandolfini. We just like you to do something. And Robert Redford's on. You know what? I'm done fighting battles. I'm doing my time and going home. That's what I'm doing. And so that's basically what he does. And he kind of sees the interaction between the other inmates. Who doesn't like who doesn't, so on and so forth. And he starts to become friends with some of the inmates, because they start engaging with him. There's one particular inmate. His name is Aguilar. He stutters. He's awkward, and he's kind, and he takes a liking to Robert Redford. And Robert Redford, in a short time begins to invest himself in him, befriend him, and everything. Another great actor. I love it because he always does these type of character roles where it gives him an ability to stretch his acting. You got to keep an eye out for him. Great actor. He's been around for years. Clifton Collins Jr. So he plays, and like I said, Aguilar, who stutters, and Robert Redford, like I said, starts taking a liking to him, and Aguilar goes to salute. They're not allowed to salute, because there's no rank in the being in prison. So Robert Redford says, you know what? How long were you in the military? You're probably here this long. You're probably this rank, and so on and so forth. Stand up straight. If you're going to salute properly, and do it like this, do it like that. So he begins to, like I said, befriend him. And what ends up happening is that Robert Redford does see the mistreatment of the prisoners. And then not only that, when there comes a time when he goes to defend Aguilar, he grabs one of the other soldiers who was about to hit him. And James Gandolfini says, well, you just touched somebody. You're not allowed to do that. And so he gives him a punishment where basically he has to move these rocks from one side to another. That's his punishment. And they start, here comes Mark Ruffalo. Okay, who's the bet that he's going to fall and he's going to give up and is not able to do it? So he's taking bets as Robert Redford is, carrying these like 20, 30-pound rocks back and forth. And what I like about the film, there's two things I like to mention. But what I like about the film is that Robert Redford begins to earn the respect of his fellow prisoners, who were treating him like just any other prisoner. He's nothing, blah, blah, blah. But they begin to see that he has great integrity, character. So they begin to be loyal to him and respect him. And meanwhile, I'm always torn because James Gandolfini his character is not a mean guy. He doesn't start off as someone you hate. You see that he slowly starts to change as he feels like he's beginning to lose control of his institution. Because he tells Robert Redford at one point, before me, he goes, I know people like you. People like you were sitting in this chair. They tried to have reform. They had tried to do this. You know how many prison guards were assaulted? How many escapes were made? And how much property was destroyed? All before I got here. You know how much I've had on that under my watch? He goes, zero. He goes, but you're making it difficult for me. And so you see James Gandolfini begin to change. And there comes a point where Robert Redford decides that the abuse that's been happening there, that it is a abuse that needs to be rectified and stopped. So he wants to talk to a friend of his who is another general, who's actually James Gandolfini's boss. another great actor. Love this actor. Is General Wheeler, portrayed by the great and delightful Delroy Lindo. And so Delroy Lindo, things happen. Robert Redford, a whole commotion happens. And, I don't want to give away too much, But here comes Delroy Lindo to talk to Robert Redford, and now you have the interaction after a certain situation occurs. But great film. Great film. I like it again because it. Many of these films are grown-up films, films that make you think and cause you to, engage in the larger sociological aspect of what is actually going on in life that most people don't experience because they're not in Leavenworth or they're not involved in the penal system. But just because you're not involved there doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of it. And if you feel to do something, do something. Again, he is, like I said, not only an award-winning actor and director, a philanthropist, but an activist. And and many of these films reflect all that. But great, as I mentioned, I haven't even scratched the surface of this great career, and I'm sure we'll be getting so much more in the years to come. Well, that's what I got for you today. And this has been Gus Summers, and you've been watching In-Show Celebrities. And this is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. And remember, don't forget to visit us every Thursday from 1 to 2 at theinshow.com, where I host The In-Show. And that's where I bring on celebrities and guests to just talk about, their projects or whatever it is that's on their minds. And of course, remember to visit us at Facebook, Flickr, Instagram, all those great social media sites. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.